The spectacular vistas and valleys in the park were all carved by glaciers. If trends continue, many of the remaining glaciers will all but disappear by the year 2020. But you can get close to one now by hiking the Grinnell Glacier Trail. The trailhead is located down the road from the Mini Glacier Hotel. But if you want to shorten the hike by about 3 miles, take the boat. Even then, the hike is a strenuous one. In about 4 miles, you'll climb from 4,900 feet to 6,600 feet above sea level. Tickets for the boat ride and ranger-led hike sell out quickly, so it's a good idea to purchase your tickets a day or so in advance. The boat leaves from the dock behind the Mini Glacier Hotel. During the lake crossing, a ranger describes the scenery. Then there's a 5-minute walk to Lake Josephine, where another boat awaits. Those who start from the trailhead emerge from the trees near Lake Josephine's boat dock. They then follow the trail along the northern shore. The weather can change rapidly near the Continental Divide, and on this September morning, frost covered the gangway. After the hike, when the boat picked us up, the temperature was near 70. Ranger hikes begin with a talk about safety. This is bear country, and bears have the right of way. We learn the best way to avoid a bear encounter is to make noise. When a bear hears a human voice, it will likely get out of the way. But if you surprise a bear, it's likely to be unhappy, and you may have to use your bear spray to fend them off. The trail heads into the woods on a boardwalk over marshy ground. Just a few hundred yards from the boat landing, the climb begins. The trail gains a few hundred feet in the first 30 minutes, and on most days, the wind grows stronger. Soon your efforts pay off with amazing views of Mount Gould, which dominates the head of the valley. On ranger-led hikes, you'll have plenty of time to rest, as you learn about local geology, wildlife, or any subject in which the ranger is fluent. This ranger is into geology. She tells us sediments which make up the rock of this trail are very old. The layers were laid down hundreds of millions of years, even before dinosaurs existed. Right next to the trail, there's evidence of the powerful forces which bent the rock and formed these mountains. Recently, rangers have had to explain one more thing: why so many trees in the area are dying. The answer is an infestation of a boring beetle in a budworm that feasts on new growth. The climb continues, and depending on the season, the foliage gets more colorful. Hundreds of millions of years ago, this entire area was under an ocean. This is fossilized seafloor. You can still see the ripples. It's now about 6,000 feet above sea level. There's a gentle rise over the next 1.5 miles, bringing Salamander Glacier into view, which is just above our destination. The saddle is reachable from the other side of the mountains via the Highline Trail. There are fewer trees the higher up you go, and the views of beautiful lower Grinnell Lake get better and better. The lake gets its vibrant turquoise color from small rock particles that were scraped off by the glacier. There are other trails in the area. A trail on the opposite side of the valley leads to Piegan Pass. Bears aren't the only mammals on the trail. This little guy will attempt to get your food, but don't let him. In this section, Lower Grinnell Lake is a constant welcome companion. The scale of the scenery is hard to capture in a camera. Somewhere on that rock face is the trail. In a few minutes, you're beside another cliff face. In many places, the trail is little more than a narrow shelf carved into the rock. There are a number of waterfalls on the trail, but even in this remote location, parasites may be present, so water must be filtered before drinking. The glacier is now only about 1 mile away, and there's a small clearing. If this were midsummer, it would be filled with blooming beargrass. After the clearing, it gets steeper. It's a single track, wide enough for only one to pass at a time. Then there's an outcrop that provides one of the best views in the park. At one point, it's so steep that stairs are cut into the rock. Soon you can hear the waterfall at the end of the valley. And there's another incredible view. Depending on your speed, you've been on the trail for 2 to 3 hours by this point, and you've climbed about 1,200 feet. So you need to be reasonably fit. Or an 8-year-old boy accompanied by his rightfully very proud father. Grinnell Glacier is one of the most studied in the park. This lot is a U.S. Geological Survey team. At times, the trail can be quite narrow. Walking it may look perilous on camera, but it's not. Soon you can hear the waterfall. Eventually, this meltwater will flow all the way to the Arctic Ocean. The trail was built in the early 1900s, but the first explorers bushwhacked their way up here in the 1850s. Back then, the ice extended all the way to the fall. Turn around to see where you've come, and you'll see the U-shaped signature of a glacier-carved valley and a string of aquamarine lakes. The boat dock, where we started, is at the near end of the second lake. Bears like this part of the trail because it's lined with berries. Ripe thimbleberries actually taste pretty good. Just before the rest area is the best view of the formation called the Angel's Wing. It looks like half the mountain was sheared off, and it was, by a glacier that once filled this valley. The rest area is a large open area with benches and a pit toilet. It's about 0.3 to 0.4 of a mile from the top of the trail. The hardest part of the hike is still to come. So this is a good place to stop, rest, have lunch, and maybe add a layer of clothing. Bighorn sheep frequently graze in the nearby meadow. This video was shot on a different day. If you're lucky enough to see a bighorn, remember that they are wild and unpredictable. The hike up the moraine to the Grinnell Glacier overlook is steep. It rises almost 400 feet. And for many, it's the most strenuous part of the trail. When you're at the top, 4 miles from the boat dock, you may be tired, but the views are well worth the effort. If you're lucky, you may see a bighorn sheep up here too. Few continue to the glacier. Most just rest here and take in the amazing scenery. The glacier itself is still about a half mile away. Some even cool their feet in the very cold water. There's much to take in. The rock face is 3,000 feet high. The waterfall nearly 1,000. Like Lower Grinnell Lake, the water here gets its striking color from glacial flour, scraped off by the glacier. Most of those who make it up here know that the glacier is shrinking, and they want to see it before it's gone. This film crew is from Japanese television. As glaciers die, crevasses form near the edge, or foot of the glacier. Ice then breaks off and becomes a berg. Bergs now cover much of the upper Grinnell Lake. Over time, some of the bergs turn on their side, revealing ice layers that are hundreds of years old. Layers are also visible on the wall of the arête. They were laid down over 1 billion years ago. This is Salamander Glacier. In the early 1900s, it was connected to Grinnell Glacier. Today, the two glaciers are separated by hundreds of feet of rock. After a U.S. Geological Survey crew visited the glacier in 2008, they learned that it was shrinking even faster than thought. It will likely stop moving and thus lose its glacier status by the year 2020. To get to the glacier, you'll have to cross a stream. I've seen just how fast the ice is melting. When I was here in 1995, the glacier was about 500 feet longer than it is today. Back then, there were still small ice caves, and the rangers were giving tours on the ice. As this 2010 video shows, the ice is now thin and flat. In fact, it's far too thin to walk on safely. Glacier melt isn't always bad news. In the 1930s, ice covered this spot. When it melted, it revealed 1.4 billion, that's with a B, year-old fossils of what was once the Earth's dominant species. These are Stromatolite fossils. These humble algae colonies are responsible for giving the Earth its breathable oxygen. Before them, the atmosphere was carbon dioxide, but their waste gas was oxygen. They were formed in warm, shallow seas, proof that this ice-covered mountaintop was once a tropical shoreline. By now, you might be wondering what sort of effort is required to reach this spot. So I asked hiker Tim Curry about his thoughts.
And that last 4/10 of a mile was a little steeper than I expected.
So is the effort worth the view?
It was absolutely worth it. I would recommend this to anybody who's of sound limb but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody who was not quite in shape for the mountain, because you do feel the altitude. It is a steep climb, it's very rocky, and you should be in shape for it.
And fitness clearly is not based on age. This grandma did it, and she's
77.
And she didn't take the boat. She started from the trailhead, 5.5 miles away. It took her 4 hours to get here. And what did she think of it?
Ah, it's marvelous.
The Grinnell Glacier Trail is one of the most scenic in North America, and one of the few that follows a glacial valley past stunning vistas with an incredible lake, and then ends at a remnant of the last ice age. This is more than a beautiful place. It's also a great place to learn something about geology, the earliest forms of life, and climate change. So when you're in Glacier National Park, if you do only one hike, the Grinnell Glacier Trail is the one to do.